Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. The first case of Covid-19 in our country was somewhere around January, if I remember correctly, towards the end of Jan. But as early as the 24th of February 2020, an award-winning Chinese military-backed scientist had filed for a patent for a vaccine against Covid-19, against this virus that came out of Wuhan in China. Let's try and connect the dots and understand what happened. Now, a patent was filed, patent file application on PLA's behalf, on the behalf of the PLA, the People's Liberation Army in China. On 24th of Feb 2020 by the scientist Zhu. Then what happens? The vaccine patent was 5 weeks after China declared human transmission of the virus. They continued denying it. Around the 20th of January 2020 is when they had declared it. The Wuhan Institute of Virology tagged a civilian institution, but collaborated on projects with the PLA. This is what US Intel says. The Wuhan lab is conducting secret military activity, quote unquote, since Jan 2020, US Intel. 5 weeks enough to create a vaccine? Or were they planning this for months/years is the question that remains in our head. Let's try and dive into it. And if that is the case, ladies and gentlemen, this man, Zhu, then 24th of Feb, he files the patent, but mysteriously he dies under mysterious circumstances 3 months after filing that patent. And an award-winning scientist just gets one mention in one paper of a Chinese newspaper in July and in a scientific paper in December. Nobody talks about him. A person who's filed for a vaccine patent on behalf of the PLA and is an award-winning scientist, no one talks about it. Is COVID-19 a PLA-engineered catastrophe? And is it time, proof enough, to make them accountable? Let's dive into the debate straight up with our guest this evening, Professor Nikolai Petrovsky, Director of Endocrinology, Flinders University. He's a professor joining us from Adelaide in Australia. Hindol Sengupta, author and columnist, is also with us, and Hindol's been also tracking the developments very closely. And there is a way to be able to link this straight back to that Wuhan lab. And Dr. Ai-Chung Lai, who has always maintained, he's the president of the Prospect Foundation, a Taiwan-based foreign policy think tank, and he's always maintained that lab leak or otherwise, the CCP and the PLA did use the pandemic, did use the virus to further their comprehensive policy, comprehensive domination, national power, and unrestricted use of anything that's available to push forward their expansionism. They did use it to their advantage. My first question is to Professor Nikolai Petrovsky. Professor, where do you stand in these allegations? And because you're a vaccine maker yourself, you would have studied the virus. Is it a lab-made virus, or is it a natural virus?
So what we can say today is that we're no closer to knowing the origins of COVID-19 than we were 12 months ago. There was unfortunately a flawed attempt to get to some of the facts by WHO, but again, they didn't really address the key questions, and the Chinese government were not cooperative in providing all the requested information. So the reality is we still can't exclude the possibility that this came about as a result of a laboratory leak. Just as we can't exclude the possibility it did come across from some form of wildlife to humans. The answer is we simply don't know. And I think 12 months in, that's unacceptable. We really should know a lot more than we do. And that's because obviously those attempts are being frustrated by the Chinese government.
True. And Professor Petrovsky, you are one among the 26 top scientists and virologists across the world, virologists and researchers across the world who have signed that letter demanding another thorough investigation. You have reasons enough to believe that there is a certain level of gain of function research element which is there, and there is this virus has been engineered. Hindol Sengupta, they say seek and you shall find, and you've also been engaging with the seeker. What is the understanding, and is it possible to easily prove that this is lab made and it emerged from that lab in Wuhan?
Indeed, you mentioned the seeker who I spoke to just about 40 hours ago. And this is a man who spent almost all of the time last year trying to, as an amateur person interested in science, dig out the truth, actually, really point by point, translating Chinese documents, and then being part of an international team, including scientists, whose work today has compelled the United States government and the world, who were people were trying to deny this entire scenario, that it may have come from Wuhan, and bury it and hide it, but it can't be hidden anymore. The world is now being forced to face up to this question, especially because of people like the work of people like the seeker, to actually confront the situation that it could be from Wuhan. Let me give you one more example.
Yeah.
Only a few hours ago, a top virologist who actually sent emails, Dr. Kristen, who sent emails to Dr. Fauci mentioning the possibility that this may be a lab-grown virus, had to delete 5,000 old tweets of his and really delete his account, delete his online presence, because now it has come out that he too suspected that this may be lab grown. Look, they always say there's no smoke without a fire. There are smoke signs everywhere. Because this is China, we are all trying to compel ourselves to believe that no, we still should not mention this. But now I think the cat's out of the bag, and indeed, as the scientist before me said, it's unacceptable that we do not investigate this further, because all the, as they say, all the signs are suggesting very clearly that there is much more to this story than we have been led to falsely believe.
Well, and most importantly, the Bat Lady, the now notoriously known Bat Lady, Xi Zhengli, continues to be the director of the Wuhan Institute of Virology despite this massive lab leak and despite operating on a gain-of-function research in a Type 2 lab, Dr. Aichung Lai. So unless she had the blessings of the PLA, she would not be continuing in those positions, especially when a scientist of the likes of Yu Shenzhou, who's a military-backed, award-winning scientist, dies a very, very unnatural death, and nobody talks about it. He's just quietly gone.
Yeah, definitely in China, for a decorated scientist in the military rank like that, cannot just be gone and without any meaningful memorial for that, especially May last year, that it was so unceremonial and so strange. I also believe that Xi Zhengli, she also has done a lot of research. According to some of them, of course, some people claim that those research are connected with how to enhance the transmittability for the virus with the human body. So those are the circumstantial evidences that the Wuhan lab, they did do the research, the so-called enhanced function, and to study how to enhance the capability of the virus to be able to be more transmittable to human. And there are also the research that they has been doing that, especially collecting bat for a number of years.
Right.
And another thing was that although the lab leak theory last year, it has emerged last year, but quickly it had been dismissed. But it just came back, especially with a stronger evidence this year. I think there's several circumstantial evidence, although it's not direct evidence about, it's a definite proof about the lab leak. One of them is that the last year, the May, there's a report that had been released about the mysterious problem in the October, year 2019, around the area of the Wuhan lab, where the very unusual power break, the shutdown of the communication occurred, and then November. That year, that's year 2019, there were reports about the 3 scientists that got the infected with a symptom very, very similar to the what we saw as the Wuhan, the coronavirus, COVID-19 today. And then I think this year, when the report regarding that the lab theory, the natural theory, that people just cannot identify where is the middle intermediate agent, so that the theory about the bat to human that can be actually working. Especially the bat, they were 1,000 miles away in the Yunnan area. How if that could be a natural pandemic? How could there was no outbreak in Yunnan or in the area that between the Yunnan and Wuhan, and it just happened in Wuhan. So those are circumstantial evidence, although it's not direct evidence, but the things like those just keep coming up. And it just backed the stronger belief that the people are suspecting.
True, but Dr. Lai, the fact is, and Hindol, I'm coming back to you, 2-3 things which stand out, lab leak or otherwise. It came out of Wuhan, but it was allowed to spread to the world. You hid the fact that there is human-to-human transmission, and you had evidence of it as early as end November 2019, December 2019. You hid that till at least the 20th of January 2020. You deliberately did that. And you allowed international flights and travel, but you had stopped domestic travel. You have a PLA-backed person who is actually filing for a patent on the 24th of February. There is enough and more. And then, of course, the expansionism that the CCP unleashed across 23 nations or 24 nations that it has its borders with. It is all evidence.
That's right. So those are the, although it's not the evidence, but those circumstantial evidence. And
no, it is all documented. It's not circumstance. I just want to bring in Hindol, Dr. Lai, if you with your permission. Yes, Hindol. Yeah.
And the other thing you mustn't forget, Anand, is not only are all the things that you're mentioning absolutely correct. We also have to ask, who are the people around the world complicit in hiding all this evidence? What about the role of global institutions? What about the role of multilateral institutions?
Yes.
The heads of these institutions? What about the role of the British scientists and American scientists and scientists around the world who came together and wrote that infamous letter in Lancet saying, no, this can't be true? What about people, like I pointed out, Dr. Christine, whose entire sort of profile on the internet is being deleted and wiped clean? What about people like him who received vast funds after they took back their initial suspicions in writing that this may have been lab leak? I want to point out one thing. This is actually pointing to something very deep and insidious. We've always known that this particular state has its agents, has its people in different parts of the world at very high levels, and at huge monies being paid to them, grants being paid to them at universities, in government, outside government, in multilateral institutions. We now have to join those dots. Who got what money? Who gets what benefit? Who are the people who are in places around the world which actually assist this regime from subverting the truth?
Absolutely.
And even after such a massacre has happened around the world, actually hiding the truth from us.
Absolutely. And Professor Petrovsky, I want to bring that to you. 35 million deaths across the country, across the world. The entire world has come to a standstill. Somewhere we have to go about making those responsible accountable.
So, I think it's really comes down to the carrot and the stick. I mean, at the moment, the world community don't really have the power to investigate outbreaks that occur within a country that doesn't want to allow investigators in or doesn't want them to have access to information. So that's a fundamental problem of the global system of governance. And so what we need is an international treaty that all countries sign that says if an outbreak starts in our country, we cannot prevent investigators coming in to get to the bottom of that outbreak. And that should apply whether the outbreak starts in the United States or in India or in China. If those countries have signed that treaty, then they're compelled to assist in investigation. I think the lack of such a treaty was the problem that we're seeing now with China able just to simply refuse to cooperate. If they'd signed a treaty, it would be much harder for them to do that. So I think the answer is we mightn't be able to fix the problem this time, but let's work on a solution so that we don't face the same issue the next time, because we will have pandemics in the future.
True.
And again, we need to have this ability to find out, very quickly what caused this particular pandemic.
Absolutely. It's impossible that something like SARS and MERS were found out within 6 to 8 months, but it's more than 18 months that we've not been able to find out what happened and where the actual origins of SARS-CoV-2 or the novel coronavirus. But Professor Petrovsky, Hindol Sengupta and Dr. Aichung Lai, thank you very much. We'll take this conversation forward as more and more evidence comes through. I have to wind up for the moment, ladies and gentlemen. But yes, nations have to come together and make China pay. And that can be done economically. There has to be trade impositions and people have to stop trading with the Chinese, because we may depend on the Chinese for goods, but they depend on us in terms of nations across the world for supplying those goods. So it's going to go back and hurt them, because that's the only way we can make them accountable. We'll take this story forward and track this very, very closely, because accountability is something which many nations want fixed, and those who are responsible should be made to pay. There should be a certain level of punishment and a certain level of retribution that is being sought. In the meantime, closer home, we want to end on a positive note. It's a happy day because there's been an announcement that vaccines will be available for all, and they will be made available at a faster pace starting the 21st of June, which is also the International Yoga Day. But here at Network 18, we urge you, this is a shot of life. Now many experts are saying just get one jab, you'll still be safe. Get the 2 jabs, get your doses, but jab teri bari aaye, tika laga. That's what we're going to say. It's our anthem. Network 18, Federal Bank's awareness campaign, Sanjeevani, a shot of life. We have United Way Mumbai, an NGO which is our partner, and of course our health partners, Apollo 24/7. Here's a look at the campaign's anthem. It's the first look. It's a teaser. The full song coming your way very, very soon. Shankar Mahadevan has composed this for us. Tika laga.